What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everyone's doing well out there, and welcome to the Week 9 tailgate. We're officially past the halfway mark of the season. And that is absolutely crazy because I feel like we look forward to the season forever, then it gets here, and it's over before you know it. But just like we do in every tailgate show, got a lot of stuff to cover here today. Some end of the week news, a last minute weather update, a review of our Pristine auction item giveaway here for this week that a lot of people are super interested in, and then our next installment of Mack and the Medic and Friday Flyers. Whichever segment you are looking for, there are timestamps down below. But let's go ahead and kick it off here. End of the week news. The first thing up, Dameon Pierce, even though he hasn't been doing jack squat all season long, he's not going to be active this week. He is out, so be sure to not have him in your lineup. I highly doubt there's a lot of teams out there with him in their lineup anyway, but I do want to make sure that you know he is out now for the week. Curtis Samuel, he's been ruled out for week 9, which means what? Yep, you guessed it. More Jahan Dotson coming here this week as well. How about Deshaun Watson? He goes from I'm going to be out for a while to I think I could be good, or we'll see. Now he's anxious and ready to play. This is one of the worst situations I've ever seen surrounding an injury. Now, I said a couple weeks ago, and I stand by my comment, I will not start Deshaun Watson in my fantasy football league until I see him on the field and producing. The last time he was on the field, he didn't even look remotely close to healthy. Heck, even earlier this week, he didn't even know if he was healthy. So before we risk it once again here, let's see how he performs on the field. If he looks healthy, if he looks good, we'll consider him here for week 10. How about Drake London? He will not be playing this week either. He has been ruled out, which I hate for him, because now with Taylor Gimme a Heineke under center, we could have seen a whole lot more Drake London, but he will not be in the ball game. Gonna be a whole lot of Kyle Pitts, I guess, maybe even sprinkling a little Mac Hollins, maybe. How about Chuba Hubbard? He's gonna start here once again in week 9. Miles Sanders, he's basically non-existent at this point, and Chuba has definitely looked better when he's been on the field. The problem is this is not a very productive backfield, I guess you could say. Chuba, for me, is going to be somebody who's more of a flex play at best. What about Odell Beckham Jr., though? He's wanting a bigger role in Baltimore, and I know, trust me, I'm right there with you. He's not what he used to be, but a lot of times when wide receivers complain, they tend to get some added targets from their quarterback. Odell Beckham could be that squeaky wheel getting the grease here in week 9. Does that mean we throw him into our fantasy lineups? No, probably not. But for those of you that do DFS lineups, maybe a little prop bets here, some underdog pick'ems, maybe you want to look at what the line set at for Odell Beckham here this week. How about in Arizona? Their quarterback situation. They said it was going to be Clayton Tune, and now all of a sudden, Jonathan Gannon wants to come out and say, we'll make a decision on Saturday. Well, if Friday was any indication, it looks like it's going to be Clayton Tune because he spent the majority of his time with the first string wide receivers. Kyler, for the most part, was with the practice squad guys. That tells me that right now, Clayton Tune has that slight edge, and we could see Kyler next week. We did get news out of New York, though. It sounds like Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones are both going to be a full go for the first time in a long time in New York. Can that offense get any better? It is beyond horrible in New York as of right now. The lowest scoring team in football. Do I want to throw Daniel Jones in my lineup? No. Not just yet. Saquon Barkley probably going to be in a lot of lineups, but not Daniel Jones here just yet. For those of you that are desperate for running backs, you cannot use Amari DiMercado of the Arizona Cardinals here this week. He has been ruled out for week 9. And then the Vikings have come out and said, hey, we're not overly committed to Justin Jefferson returning in week 10. Now, that shouldn't be a huge surprise to a lot of people. We've been talking about it for weeks, how they're not going to rush back Justin Jefferson, especially now that Kirk Cousins is not there. They're going to kind of take it a little bit slower. If they continue to win ball games and they're in the playoff hunt, then yeah, sure, all of a sudden Justin Jefferson may have a chance. But if they can't get it done with Jaron Hall or Josh Dobbs, it could be a while for Justin Jefferson, so keep an eye out on that. How about some weather updates? This one is going to be super simple. Are you ready? As of right now, there are no games scheduled to be affected by weather. Now, I don't know about your hometown, but here in North Carolina, we can see like 3 different forecasts in a day. So be sure to stay on top of it. Kyle will mention this once again Sunday morning in our members only live stream. So make sure you're tuned in to that. How about our Pristine auction item giveaway here of the week? And we actually had a lot of people more than I was expecting interested in this item. We're giving away an autographed rookie card of Jamar Chase. There are only 75 of these cards in existence. This is number 59. You can see the autograph right there. So if you have not yet watched my quarterback start and sit video, that is the video you need to go to. Hit the like button, leave a comment down below, because I'm going to be announcing a winner for this card in that show in week 10 next week. So be sure to stay on the lookout for that. All right. That's all the end of the week news. There's some updates here. So now is the time we're going to send it over to the next installment of Mack and the Medic.
Yo, what's going on, Headliner Nation? We're back, week 9. That's Mack. I'm the Medic. This is Mack and the Medic. And Mack, I got to tell you, man, the hot topic of the NFL this week has got to be backup quarterbacks. So I wanted to talk about backup quarterbacks with you, Mack, but I wanted to have a little bit more fun with it because everybody's having the same conversations. Let's talk about all these backups. They all suck. We know they suck. That's why they're backups. But I want to talk about them in a way that is a little bit more exciting. So I got a little challenge for you, Mack. I think that I am a great fantasy football drafter. I'm not so sure about you, Mack. So I'm going to challenge you to draft the worst starting lineup of only backup quarterbacks. So we're going to be doing a little back and forth draft here. We're trying to make the worst fantasy lineup out of 3 quarterbacks. So we're doing a 3 quarterback league because we're only drafting quarterbacks. We're only allowed to pick the backups that are starting this week, and we got a lot of them. So Mack, I'm a gentleman. I'm going to let you pick first. Who would you be taking if you're trying to make the worst fantasy team with only quarterbacks?
Wow. Okay. So, man, I'd probably have to go with Tyson Badgett from Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Starting off, man. I mean, he started out great, but last week it was a total disaster. So I don't really know what's going on there. He'd have to be my first choice as far as backups are concerned.
Yeah. See, you've already let me win, Mack, because I'm going to crush this first pick. I like the Tyson Badgett pick. I think he's all right. He's not good, but he shows a little something. At least he can throw the ball forward, which is better than I can say for my first pick. Giants 3rd string quarterback, Tommy DeVito. That dude is horrible. And I can tell you, Mack, Illinois kid. Played at Illinois. He was terrible when he played at Illinois.
Right.
And now he's starting for an NFL franchise. He's the worst quarterback I've ever seen. I don't even think he completed a forward pass. I think they had negative nine passing yards in a game that went into overtime. Mack, you and I could roll in and have negative 9 passing yards. I'm just saying. They don't even trust him to throw the ball forward. So I've already won the draft, but give me your second pick.
Well, technically, no, because you said that was going to start this week, right?
I'm saying projected.
Daniel Jones is going to start. So technically, I'm just saying.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
But
we'll see what happens.
That's a caveat.
We'll see what happens. I don't trust the Daniel Jones news. I don't trust anything with this Daniel Jones situation.
Yeah, I mean, he's been kind of injury prone. So, yeah.
I don't trust it.
I don't know, man. I guess the next one I'd have to go with maybe is between Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins. They hadn't really came out and said who's going to start there.
You're just picking either one.
Either one.
Honestly, next guy's on my list. I'd have been the same way.
Yeah.
I don't know what I know that Josh Dobbs is going to be the starter going forward for the Vikings big trade. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But dude, Jaron Hall ain't it, man. I'm just saying, I guess you got to see what you have with the rookie, but I'm not buying it. I like that pick, Mack. That's a good pick. I got a guy might be starting. I guess I might be cheating the rules a little bit because most of my guys may be starting. but probably won't. But the Cardinals are talking about potentially starting Clayton Tune. Clayton Tune. Traded Josh Dobbs. That's how confident they were. I think that Kyler Murray is coming back and probably going to play this week, if not next week. But if they start Clayton Tune, yikes. This could be really, really bad for the team. We haven't seen him play yet, so I guess there's a chance that he could surprise us. But think about the first game for rookie quarterbacks that were not drafted in the first round in this year. Just this year. Dustin Badgett comes out, he fumbles the ball, immediately gets returned for a touchdown. Aiden O'Connell, a guy maybe on your list. I'm just saying, I won't spoil picks, but first start, 3 turnovers, maybe even 4 turnovers. I think he had 3 interceptions. So it's rough. If you're not a good quarterback, the first game in is pretty rough. So I'm going with Clayton Tune as my second pick. Who's your last pick, Mac?
All right, I like that pick. So my last pick, I hate to say it because this is near and dear to both of our hearts, this team, but possibly Mitchie Biscuits might be starting. We don't know.
Oh, no.
So if he starts, I almost want to say I would much rather have Mason Rudolph. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, maybe.
At least Mason will throw the ball down the field. Mitch Trubisky, man, ain't it? I feel really bad about that situation. So he would be my next pick.
All right. Well, most of the bad ones have been taken. I think you're right there. I'm scared as a Steelers fan too. Most of the bad ones have been taken. My last guy, though, he came into the year as the starter for his team. That's how bad he's played. And he's going to be my last pick. I'm going with the Patriots quarterback, Mac Jones. He's probably starting this week. I'm not sure he should be. He has played like garbage. If you've got him in fantasy, I can't imagine that you feel good if you have to throw him into a lineup. But Mac Jones, that dude's bad. He's bad, man. It's a shame because he was so good in college. But I think he is a good example of what happens when you surround decent throwers with a elite offensive line and elite weapons on the outside. You don't get that in the NFL. There's very few offenses that have both elite weapons on the outside and elite offensive line. So my third guy is an actual starter in the league, Mac Jones. But Mac, we got other things to talk about. So let's get into some trade deadline talk. All right, Mac, let's talk about the trade deadline. Trade deadline has passed in the NFL. Some moderate moves, not a huge splashy move. A couple decent players moving around the league. Some fantasy relevant stuff, but I just want to talk just straight up football for a moment. So we're gonna step away from fantasy. We'll get back to it here in a second, but just straight football. Did you have a favorite trade that you saw get made at the deadline?
Yeah, believe it or not, and it's nothing like flashy or anything like that, but I personally like the Joshua Dobbs move. I think that helped rejuvenate and really save fantasy relevant players from Minnesota because Joshua Dobbs is a good player. Yeah. And I think he'll step into that offense and continue to allow Addison and when Jefferson gets back and also Hawkinson still be fantasy relevant. So that was my favorite.
Yeah, and pretty cheap, really. I mean, you get Dobbs, a solid quarterback. You send a 6th round pick, but you get a 7th back that is conditional. So if something were to happen to Dobbs, it could even be a 6. So it could end up being Josh Dobbs and a pick swap. So pretty good trade there for the Vikings. Clearly, Kirk Cousins going down, probably the biggest news of the week. So if you have Justin Jefferson, this is big news for you because there was a moment there where if they didn't have a good backup quarterback, and I'd still say there's still a chance, but unlikely now that Justin Jefferson could have gotten shut down for the year with his injury. Because if the team's tanking, why would you bring him back with, Jaron Hall or Nick Mullins as a quarterback? It just doesn't really seem to make much sense. So this is a move that tells me they still think they can compete within their division, maybe even sneak into the playoffs if they have decent quarterback play. And so, I would say that was one of my favorites. And honestly, I'm a little biased because I love when big boys get traded, but my favorite trade that I saw has no fantasy relevance whatsoever. But Ezra Cleveland, actually another Minnesota trade, they got rid of a starting guard in Ezra Cleveland, sent him to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a 6th-round pick. Very cheap price for a starting guard in the NFL coming in, going to help a lot with protecting Trevor Lawrence. I just love anytime a team invests in the line when they have an elite quarterback, and it's only going to help the offense as a whole. So not really fantasy relevant, but I did like that move for the Jags. But what about a trade that you didn't like? Was there anything that you saw that you were like, God, that's bad value, or I don't like the team fit? What was a trade that you did not enjoy?
So it was one that it fit the team, or it helped the team that he went to, but the one he left, I think it hindered them. And that's Montez Sweat.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that, the Commanders had a great base. They had a great core group of guys that they could actually build that defense to become elite. Yeah. And they just dismantled it. I didn't like that for them. But again, they might be fire selling, man, and trying to just reboot. But I didn't like that. I didn't like that trade for Washington.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't like it for the other reason. I don't think that Chicago is making good moves. They seem to be the only team that's overpaying at the trade deadline every single year. And so you pay a high 2nd-round pick, a nice contract, 4-year contract guaranteed. Those are good players that you're getting in the high 2nd. And I'm not saying Montez Sweat isn't a good player, but you got to pay the guy. And so there's no cost control there. At some point, you're going to have to give him a contract if you want him to stay, and you're putting the risk on yourself. What if he just decides he doesn't want to stay? What are they playing for? They're not trying to win this year. At least I don't think they're trying to win this year. If they are, they suck at it. And so you're bringing in this guy, you're paying a high price, plus you're paying him on top of that. Plus, if he doesn't want to go there, you could lose him for nothing. And so you're putting all the risk on yourself for a team that's probably not going to, I like Montez Sweat, but I don't think he's like a 3-win changing team player. I mean, he's not a guy that is going to get you wins necessarily. And so team fit's okay if you re-sign him, but man, I just feel like from a value standpoint, they are overpaying, every year. And it just seems like every year we're going to talk about, man, that was, whoever that ends up being, that pick, you're going to be like, man, I can't believe that, they could have had this guy at this number and they ended up paying Montez Sweat instead. For me, I didn't really see any bad trades necessarily. I didn't like the price for Leonard Williams for the Giants going to Seattle for a 2nd and a 5th. I still think, the trade deadline in the NFL, it's unless you're getting a really top end elite guy, you should be getting them for dirt cheap. So I didn't love that deal. I do love it for both teams. I think both teams got value, things that they want from it. I think Leonard Williams is a good player. I just think that, again, from a value standpoint, a little bit of an overpay. But from a fantasy perspective, Mac, was there any trades that you really liked? Not a lot of offensive guys really moving around.
Right. Well, let's stick with, the guy that I just previously talked about. Let's go to his teammate, Chase Young. I mean, that's a guy that I felt like that he went to a team that was already elite, and he just added more, fuel to the fire. Yeah. So I really
IDP
like
leagues
that.
for sure. And if you're starting the 49ers defense, you got to be thrilled about that.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're throwing 7 elite pass rushers out there. And Chase Young, I think he maybe underperformed a little bit, got hurt during his rookie year. Rookie deal, I should say. And so that injury, I think, has hindered him a little bit in terms of what he was in college coming into the NFL. But man, coming onto a defense where he doesn't have to be the number one option, they're going to be throwing him one-on-one against pretty much anybody they want. I mean, they can move that whole defensive line around a ton. And I think, again, just Rich getting richer. That was a good trade for the 49ers, I mean, they're just loading up, strength on top of strength. So I love that. From a fantasy perspective, really it's probably Josh Dobbs. If we're being honest, that one had the most implications for me. Pretty light trade deadline, really. No crazy moves going around, but wanted to get your thoughts on it, Mac. And I know that you got some Flyers coming up that you crushed it last week. I don't know if anybody knows this, but my boy Mac dropping these Friday Flyers. You don't want to miss these Friday Flyers, man, because Mac absolutely slayed the Flyers last week. If you watched the show, picked up those dudes, you were 3 days ahead of your league mates. Probably got some really talented guys to throw on your bench. You didn't even have to worry about waivers. So let's bring Mac in by himself. I'll step aside. Let my boy Mac tell you about some Friday Flyers.
Yo, what it do? It's your boy Big Mac, and I'm back again with the Friday Flyers, the Week 9 edition. Listen, I'm not going to get into a big, long intro because y'all already know what it is. I'm about to bring you the fire. So without further ado, let's get to it. All right, first up, I want to talk about Joshua Dobbs, quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. So we all know about the transition in the trade that just happened. Joshua Dobbs leaving Arizona, going to Minnesota. And this, to me, is a godsend for TJ Hawkinson owners, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison. Everybody who owns these guys should be elated right now because, Kirk Cousins, when he went down, it was like the world stopped. That was huge for fantasy. Joshua Dobbs, I'm not saying he's a world beater or anything like that, but as a starter, his first 8 games in Arizona, he did pretty good. He completed 62% of his passes for 5.9 yards per attempt with 8 touchdowns. And he also had 3 games above 25 PPR points. So that's pretty good. It's not a tier 1 quarterback by any means, but he's capable enough of getting you by a week. If you have an injury to a quarterback or anything like that, Joshua Dobbs can come in and be a viable starter. Now, again, he's not going to be able to start this week, but go ahead and pick him up and then stash him on your bench. So when maybe week 11 comes by, he'll be ready and he'll be good to go. Next up is Jamison Crowder, wide receiver of the Washington Commanders. So he came in last week against the Eagles and he caught 7 of 7 targets for 95 yards and a tub. That's pretty decent numbers. And considering that he hadn't been playing a while, but he came in again because Curtis Samuel got hurt. And going forward, we don't know how long Curtis is going to be out. So Jamison Crowder is a guy that you can pick up. And like I said, maybe even use him in a flex play situation because they really like that. Offense is catered around that intermediate passing attack with Logan Thomas. Then you got some of the running backs, Brian Robinson, also Gibson. But Curtis Samuel was a huge part of that as well. They could use him in wheel routes, intermediate end rounds. So it was multifaceted ways that they use Curtis Samuel. But again, like I said, by him being out, they got to have another option. And Jamison Crowder came in and he served that pretty well. So I would go out and just pick him up. Like I said, stash him away and just see what the productivity looks like. And going forward, you could have a flex play every week. All right, next up, I want to talk about Tyler Conklin from the Jets. So he's averaging around 4 targets a game, and with the tight end landscape as barren as it is, that's a decent target volume. He also faces this week the Los Angeles Chargers, which they're giving up about 11 fantasy points per game to tight ends, and that's 6 overall, the 6th highest total in the league. So if you can get a guy like that right off your waiver wire and you can plug him in, because a lot of people are probably dealing with some tight ends that are on bye right now, you can actually use Tyler Conklin going forward as well, because again, Zach Wilson, anytime he gets in trouble, he looks underneath. If he's not dumping it off to Hall, then he's going to look for Tyler Conklin. And again, he's a great safety valve, and he's arguably the second option in that offense right now, passing wise. So, and he's also a great red zone threat. So he's a guy that you might want to pick up. And like I said, you could probably plug him in this week if you don't have a tight end or if you got one that's on bye. But again, just stash him away, and going forward, you'll have a red zone target right there waiting for you to plug and play. And last but not least, I want to talk about Hunter Renfrow, wide receiver from the Raiders. So now this is just a small sample size, but the target shares with Aiden O'Connell, Renfrow saw a 14% target share. And with the changing of the guard, we can expect it to be a possibility to see his numbers increase. Bo Hargrave is a new OC. And coming from the Adam Gase coaching tree, now listen, I know everybody thinks of Adam Gase as putrid and all that stuff. And yes, probably as a head coach, but as an OC, Adam Gase with Peyton Manning, even when he was with Chicago, Adam Gase was pretty good. And this guy comes from that tree, so they know how to get receivers in place, especially slot receivers. Hunter Renfrow has an opportunity to see an increase in his target volume and to be implemented into this offense. And I think he's going to do that going forward. So I would go out and get Hunter Renfrow. Like I said, you don't have to plug him in right now, but go ahead and stash him away because this offense is going to change. And I think Hunter Renfrow is going to be a huge part of that. All right, guys, enjoyed it once again. That's it for this week's Friday Flyers, the Week 9 edition. Listen, again, go check out some of these players that I talked about. Stash them away if you got availability and just see what happens. But at the end of the day, I want everybody to be safe, be blessed, and be a champion. See you on next week. Peace.
All right, appreciate it, fellas. Now, before I get out of here for the day, one big announcement, and I need everybody's attention. Right here, focus on me. It has to do with the Saturday night live stream here this week. Now, y'all know we're here every Saturday night and our chat be popping on Saturday nights, but we're gonna do something a little bit different here this week. We're gonna have a purpose for this live stream. 100% of all donations received through Super Chats during the live stream are going to be donated to Compassion International. If you've been watching our shows here over the last month, you know we've partnered up with Compassion International to try to help take children out of extreme poverty. So like I said, 100% of all of our donations that we received are going to be sent directly to Compassion International the next day. So please don't miss out on that Saturday night live stream. It's going to be a lot of fun trying to help take care of some kids around the world. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here for the day. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Good luck this weekend in all of your fantasy football matchups. And hopefully I see you on Saturday night. Until then, though, just do your part to make the world a better place.
I'm a headliner.